All right, so we're talking about ideas and thoughts, I guess you would say, about movies when they come out, after they come out, years after they come out, how we change our opinions. Is that okay? Is it okay for us to change our opinion? I would say normally yes, it is. Of course, it's our own opinion, but it's crazy how sometimes things work, how we do come to these conclusions. So the guys I always watch the Escape podcast, they kind of go over for a second, and I'll kind of open up that
I
conversation.
gave Captain America: Brave New World like
A 7.
a 7. I think I could bump that down to a 6.5. Same thing with Quantumania. I think I gave it a 7. I could give it a 6 or a
I'd give
6.5.
Quantumania a 3.
Marvels, I think, is staying at an 8. Thunderbolts,
Marvel's at
Deadpool,
8 is
Wolverine,
very
Guardians
good.
3 is all staying where it was.
Yeah, so 8 for Thunderbolts and then 9's or 8 for Thunderbolt. 8.
So going back to your movies that you watched before and being like, I don't think it's this good, or you pumping it up. These guys are kind of dropping theirs, which is fine. But my thing is, do people that like that movie get more upset with you when you're dropping on them? If you're raising on them, or if it's a movie they don't like, I guess, and you're raising on them, they're like, what? Why? What's your problem? Like, what's your problem? Or if you were all about the movie together, and then you're like, you know what? After a while, I kind of dropped it down a little bit. That's what brought my idea, and it happened to me. And some people get pissed off about it. That didn't happen to me. But if you loved the movie when it came out, how can you suddenly say it later that, you know, it's lower than this and it's 10 years later and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of things that go on behind it. That's any movie. But, you know, clearly they're talking about Marvel, and I think just Marvel. I don't think they mentioned anything else, because you can do that with any movie. But I know Marvel movies is always the big thing about ranking and rating it, and is this better than this movie, because it's the only constant franchise we have with the ongoing story, that other movies come in, take place, and that's been going on in continuity for so many years. So that's one of the big ones that people kind of go up and down. And this actually happened to me. And me changing my thoughts on it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it or I hated it. I could have disliked it more. And, you know, rating something isn't a tattoo. You can change it. We're allowed to think about a movie again. Sometimes we rewatch it and it just doesn't hit the same. Sometimes you notice some problems with it. And then that big one is Thor for me. The first Thor. When Thor came out, I was excited we had Thor. I could care less what you told me. Watched the movie, I was fine with it. That was great. I was so happy. But after time and other movies came out and it just kind of aged a little, I still think there's an interesting story in Thor, but there could have been more to Thor. He spends most of the time on Earth. When you think of Thor, you're going to think about Asgard. He's powerless for most of the movie. That kind of sucks. But again, it's part of the story, so we can't hate them for that. He's got the whole fish out of the water story. They always do that, where they don't know what's going on, and the person has to fill them in. They did that with Jane, but they turned Jane's into the romance, which was a lot, I felt like, after watching it. Like, this took away a lot from the plot. And I understand all these things make a story. And again, doesn't make it bad, but I thought very highly of it for a long time. And just looking back at it, I realized the love interest very humanized him too fast as being this god of thunder. It took a lot away from Thor. And I think what hurt it more is other incarnations of Thor, to be honest with you, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because bad for the movie, the first movie, good for lovers of Thor and getting better. But I think something worth exploring is, to me, it's weird that now Thor is been known as, like, you know, the man of Asgard. And granted, a lot of his comics go back and forth. You know, a lot of the older ones are a lot dealing with Asgard. But a lot of it's fantasy and stuff like that. And there are stories that have him, you know, of course, on Earth. And the best times for me is always him teaming up with someone. I always thought Thor was cool as a team-up character. Some of his main stories back in, like, the 60s, 70s, wherever you want to find those, they sometimes bored me as a kid. But then, you know, once you got, like, into, like, I think there were some really, really, really good stories told recently. But there are some good ones here and there throughout the thing. But I always thought I liked Thor's part as the almost fish out of water on Avengers. He's the guy that's kind of like stands out a little bit. I like that role. I liked him being the Even though Hulk is there sometimes, but Hulk is the not there all the time. But Thor is that the beefy guy behind Iron Man and Tony. They're the big three, and I liked having this guy there that was very noble and having that vibe, and it fit. But you know, all of Thor's, all of my favorite, I want to do a video based on Thor's journey, but I don't know how I'm going to structure that yet. But basically, I think he has a really good journey. But to be real with you, all my favorite Thor moments have been in Avenger movies. They've been in the Avengers. He was great. The Wakanda scene in Endgame, the interacting with the Avengers, you know, in like Age of Ultron. The interacting with just others in general. His persona changed a lot. Him fighting with Hulk, and that goes with Ragnarok and with the first one. I don't know the first one. Yeah, he hits him with the hammer for a second. All these things that I liked weren't dealing with the Thor movie. So over time, that Thor movie started dropping lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And then I had to just sit there and be like, was he established enough in that first movie to be like this awesome character I believe he was? And I really don't feel like he was. I feel like they kind of cruised by with him and played it safe, and they took it pretty slow with Thor, to be honest with you. And this goes back to the whole thing, you know, can we change what, because I've had people go like, that's crazy, you don't think that movie's good anymore? I'm like, no, I never said I didn't think it was good. It's I love me some Thor, but I just think he's done better in better parts. And on top of it, I don't think the first one really made him like exciting like I see him now. So it makes me drop in time. It was lower because if you watch the first movie, there was no big threat, nothing was at stake. It was more of a lesson being learned. You know, he got banished and he lost Mjolnir. We get to see the Destroyer fight, which is kind of cool. But Destroyer was kind of just used by Loki, and Loki's like the main bad guy in a way. And you know, and I think honestly it helped Loki more than anything establish who he is and where he was going, because Loki by far is another character that I could fight for saying has the greatest development through all these Marvel series. When I look at it, I don't know who's been in more things, because I don't know if you would count Loki's TV show, because he had 2 seasons of that, so that could technically count, I would say. But this Destroyer part isn't like the main villain. It's basically Loki just sending something at him to take him out, and that's when he kind of becomes Thor again, and we get that whole story. And the real ending is just Loki and Thor like arguing basically, and it's got the emotional depth in there. It works, the emotional aspects of that part. It works. The Loki's relationship with Odin works. Loki discovering who he really is. Thor trying to stop his brother. All that is good. It's good storytelling. But as far as like as a whole, what I enjoy about it started to like disappear, and it just really felt like Thor had nothing really to do in the movie besides be lost and find himself. And it just, again, when I first came out, I liked it a lot. And I was like, this is great. Like, I remember I was big on buying the double side posters for Marvel movies, because I was like, I'm gonna get every Marvel movie that's comes out, and I'll get the real theater posters that you put on the frame that they're meant to light up. And I literally stopped at, I don't know, when did first Avenger Thor come out? I think I got to Iron Man 2, maybe. That's not even the best one to stop at, but there's no way. Nowadays, I think about it, I'd have to have a mansion. If I win the big one, millionaire, sure, I'll have my movie room full of all the different movies, even if I don't like the movie, and even Thor will be in there. But you know, you just think at the end, like, it's gonna be this big epic thing, and like I said, I was pumped. I still love the poster too. He looked great in his suit. We got to see visually pleasing Thor, but at the end of it all, I thought we were gonna get some cool big battle. Nothing was built up for it, and it just never happened. The climax had no stakes at all, really. It was just emotional about the stakes, kind of, I guess you could say. And it is what it is. And I think of Thor as like this epic character, and I think at that time just having him. This is why I tell everybody we're very we're greedy, and I'm at fault for this right now. That we get things coming out that were better, and we start crapping on older things. And I'm not crapping on it. It's still a fine movie, but it's just it's on my lower totem of Thor's. Of course, oh man, it's rough because the Dark World is a little rough, and Love and Hate, or Love and Hate, it was kind of hate. Love and Thunder are kind of down there. I actually think I'd put maybe Dark World above Love and Hate, or not Love and Hate. Love and Thunder. I keep saying hate. That's probably what I'm subliminal thinking. That's the unfortunate part. Thor really got treated right in the movie, the Avenger movies, more than anything. But people hate Ragnarok. I love Ragnarok. But yeah, it's just I don't think he got treated right, and maybe the Thor movie worked better as a Loki setup. Now that I look at it, we understand why he was angry. We see the relationship with Odin. We see his jealousy. And I mean, to be fair, we obviously, this isn't the last time we get to see him. And he goes through his journey, and he does what he has to do. But at this time, we haven't seen anything. He hasn't gone through the Avengers yet, Dark World, Ragnarok, Infinity War, none of this. So with Loki on the other side of it, Loki had a lot more still to go through as well. But it all kind of starts here, just like how Thor started. But I think he got the better jump on starting the origin and getting it better. And I just think Loki accomplished more probably in the Thor movie than Thor did. And then Thor got his eyebrows bleached. Okay, I don't know why Marvel bleached his eyebrows. I don't get it. I'll never get why. It's so hard not to not look at it. I don't get why they did that, but I have to go there. And ultimately, yeah, I just didn't. I dropped it now, and people that probably like, oh, I thought you loved Thor, blah blah blah. But the biggest one is where I liked it a lot, and I grew to like it a lot more. So I liked Age of Ultron a lot, and people thought you're crazy. That's like the least favorite Avenger movie, and I'm like, I don't know. It's just fun. I love James Spader. Him as Ultron is just great. I thought Ultron was gonna be boring. I'm sure Avenger movie I'd been fine, but I thought Ultron would be a boring villain. Marvel has a history of having horrible villains that are boring and not a threat. Ultron felt fresh, felt like a new character. A lot was going on, but as that movie went further, I kept telling people I think this feels like a lot more important than we made it out to be. And no one was really telling me it was terrible, but they were just like, it's not the best. Some things in it I don't really care for, but when we got to Endgame, I was really like, damn, watching Age of Ultron again, it set up so much. So we had like Scarlet Witch getting everybody the dreams. We had Tony faced with a PTSD that ends up driving more to the point, and to Iron Man 3. People might not be happy with Iron Man 3, whatever, but that still drove him. With his PTSD and his fear, and seeing the Avengers dead, it made him even more obsessed with protecting Earth. And then the fear does it end with the Ultron that he's having. We have the fear that is taking us toward the Civil War, and while it's going on, Tony and Cap kind of butt heads, and that leads up to them arguing about doing the right thing and stuff like that. So we get Civil War basically. Again, I think Age of Ultron was laying. This wasn't all on accident. They knew what they were doing. And people might not like certain aspects, like Joss Whedon directed it or whoever wrote it, whatever. But this is what I'm saying. This is what I liked already. But then you start piecing things together that maybe they planted things on purpose, or people were smart enough to connect to it. It really shows why Tony accepts the side he's on for the registration in Civil War. And of course, with that, everything leads to Thanos with that. And then, Wanda, we see where her trauma really starts. She had it, of course, with her family and all that, but this is when she lost her brother. And see how easily she was able to be manipulated by her pain, how Ultron used her. And later, this becomes a massive part of WandaVision. So, a lot of it jumpstart in Age of Ultron. And again, this is a movie I already liked, but then I started growing it higher and higher. Like, I might have said it was a 7. Then all of a sudden, now it's like a 9 to me. I don't know. I hate rating movies because it's so hard, because they could change on how I feel that day. But and I never gave it anything tense because I can't say anything's perfect. And then the big thing for me was Clint. Like Clint, they make it very clear in the beginning where they mention him having a girlfriend or something like that, and he's like, I don't have anyone or whatever, and she's patching him up. I forgot. It's Chow Amadeus Cho mom. I don't know her name in it, but she's a Cho. Patching him up in the wherever they're at, the nurse area in the Avengers compound, and we do get to meet his family, and it makes it show so much more light. I know people were mad, or Jeremy Renner was mad, or something. He didn't get a lot to do in the first Avengers. They didn't use Hawkeye, and it's kind of hard to use just a guy that uses bow and arrow and he has no powers. It's hard. It's tough. I get it, but they added so much to him with just him showing that he does have a family. He has his whole life that he goes and takes away from when he's working with Shield and all that. He has his home full of love and kids and family, and it's such a big deal. And we see that, and we see how much he loves and cares for him. He takes care of the Avengers, letting them come there. Seems like Fury and Widow knew the whole time that he was always there, but then a lot changes when we see the impact of when the snap happens. He loses that family, and now it's a lot more meaningful. So if we didn't have Age of Ultron telling that story, we would have never got that idea or that feeling of, oh, we didn't even know his family. We got to know his family, see how close they were. They opened in game with the snap, and that was the first thing I think we saw was him playing with his kids using the bow and arrow, and them just disappearing on them while they were cooking out in the picnic area or whatever you want to call it. And that gave you a whole different vibe than just us seeing them for the first time, compared to seeing how much he was actually a family man that he kept hidden from everybody. Would even lie to a certain point. And then it even goes deeper with the Hawkeye TV show. It shows a lot of what he went through having that family and all those different things. But and him being alone, being away from them, and it dealt a lot with, you know, her being Mockingbird, his wife being Mockingbird, we learned, and all these different things. But again, that was a simple thing for Hawkeye, and it set up with that, and him becoming Ronin and going out and just feeling nothing and murdering people, killing people because he got that deep because he didn't have his family anymore. Now we got it. If we just had him running around, said he lost his family, great, we believe it, but it sells it more that we got to know them. And again, Age of Ultron did the same thing. Thor I think is a huge part of it. Thor gets the vision with the stones. The stones is a huge thing, and this was already a thing I really, really liked when I watched the first one, or the first time I watched it. That made me like a lot of it. I'm like, they're putting things together with this. It's a big thing, especially with like Vision getting made and all those different points. But it leads us to Ragnarok. It leads us to pointing the direction of he sees Ragnarok happening, or it's gonna happen, or something like that. So it's coming as a bigger, larger threat, and this happens with Age of Ultron. Thor gets all this to happen to him in it. We have Steve, who he has some things going on. The biggest thing for me, I think, was him moving the Mjolnir a little bit in Thor's face, and then ultimately we see him get Mjolnir, and Thor gladly yells, "I knew it." And it ties kind of back to that day, again, happened in Age of Ultron, that he slightly moved it and he decided not to pull it all the way up. So it was a small little tidbit in Age of Ultron. They could have done it in any other movie, but it was cool, you know, that Steve got that moment. I don't want to say so much change for Steve in Infinity War that set him up for other movies. I'm trying to think. The only thing is like the discussion with Tony about which side are we on? Are we here to, you know, stop wars? And they have a really good argument that both sides make sense. So that's one thing leading to Civil War is a big part with Captain America in it. And then Age of Ultron, in Age of Ultron, they just were planting all these seeds, and it seemed to make a lot of sense. And even with something small as Hulk leaving at the end, they were setting up, we knew we were going to get some kind of Planet Hulk movie. That opened it up. It was just this real bridge of a movie, I felt like. And it did what any movie's supposed to do. It told its own story, but it set up a lot of other stories. It did what it was supposed to do, what movies like that should be doing. Movies in between stories. And not only could it hold its own being a good story, I think Ultron was great. I liked the story. I liked Vision being an aspect of it and all that. But on top of all that, it played its part in setting up for future movies and other movies. And we don't get that a lot with a lot of these movies that are having continuity. Let's say, for example, Transformers or something. I don't really follow Transformers that much. I've watched them here and there, but there's no Transformer movie that kind of, in the middle of all of it, sets up for the next 3 or 4 movies, or the spin-off TV series, or whatever it is. They don't get that, but I'm just saying in general. And then I just realized also, when you watch it, it like is the only time we really see the Avengers being the Avengers. And I think I saw someone post about that, and it was kind of cool to see. People are kind of like starting to like this movie a lot more over time. And I think someone said that before too, and it's true. Like the first Avengers, they finally come together at the end. You go to Civil War, they're basically fighting each other. You go to Infinity War, it's basically a Thanos movie, and they're all split up different places. They're all everywhere. Iron Man's not really even around. He doesn't come back till he's way around. That's right. I'm getting him mixed up. He's way gone away. Everyone's in their different areas. We don't get to see them work as a team. And then Infinity War, the best thing we have, or Endgame, the best thing we have is them all recouping back together, and Avengers assemble, and they kind of fight together, but they fight with everybody, and we don't get to see Avenger vibe. And this is a totally different story. The movie starts off with them as a team, and it's like them fighting Hydra, and they're communicating with each other while they're fighting together and making jokes, language and things like that. It's all a way different dynamic than we've seen through any movie even so far. I don't think we're even going to get that in a while. I mean, sadly, we're not going to get that Avenger team because Black Widow is dead, and other people are going to move on. Cap's probably going to move on after this movie. Tony Stark already died. So that's essentially the only time we really got the Avengers all together at one point, fighting together, communicating together, working together. Natasha making Hulk calm down. He was out there with them on the mission. It wasn't like they were using him just as a monster or whatever. He had his part, bring him in when we needed him. And, when they were done, they're done with him. And they didn't treat him like this freak or whatever. He was a teammate. So it was like a lot going on with that. And then it really humanized them on a different level when they went back to the Avengers Tower, and they have almost like a celebration dinner or whatever, and Stan Lee's there getting drunk, and we get to see everybody talking. War Machine's there, and he's giving his story. I forgot what he said. Boom, you needed this or whatever it was. But everyone's interacting. We have people catching up. We get to see Falcon come in there and talk a little bit. But more so is when everybody leaves and they're just hanging out, talking, drinking, not practicing, all attempting to lift the hammer. And it feels like they're friends, they're coworkers, they're a team. And I feel like in any other movie, we never got downtime with them unless it was a tense moment. I wouldn't say even downtime. We never get downtime with them, period, besides that point. Other times that they're there not fighting, it's them stressed out or tensed, yelling at each other, or having a serious conversation about, what are you without a suit of armor and all this crap. It's not, they're never just chilling. And that's a final moment we get to see the Avengers sit back, chill, hang out, and they're just being good friends. They're just being a team. And we don't get that in any other movie. There's not, anything about being a superhero in that scene, which is really crazy. Besides the fact they're all trying to lift Thor's hammer. But other than that, for the most part, it's just they get to be just for a moment, they get to be just regular people among superheroes. They get to be regular as they can. But yeah, so I just think it's a really strong argument for why Age of Ultron is such a strong movie, and how it got better with time. And not to mention now it's like we're going to get Vision Quest, which hasn't even came out yet, and we're still going to be talking about it, referring to it, because Ultron's going to come back and we're going to be bringing it up again. So now when I watch a movie, I can't watch it like I did in 2015. It's just a different vibe. I know Clint's family, what it means. I know what Tony's fear would become. I know what goes through with Wanda, as far as even up to WandaVision. We know Steve is worthy, and of course we know all what the Infinity Stones are going to lead to. And even with Vision being created, we see that it got ripped out of Vision and he dies, and that's a huge part of WandaVision. All these things that happened in Age of Ultron all had these ultimate payoffs. Like them or not, they had these big payoffs, and the movie didn't change. The context of it didn't change. Nothing changed. The movie did nothing to change to fit these narratives. Nothing to fit this program. Nothing to fit this story. Nothing to fit all these other future comics or stories. I'm sorry. It's like I said, someone planted all this and meant for it to happen this way. And if they did, bravo. But I think honestly, some of it was like the Stones. But far as other parts, I think people wrote off from Age of Ultron setting it up so well. People were like, okay, let's have Hawkeye become Ronin and have him be brutally upset of losing his family. That's smart. We made him snap. We didn't have to write him into Infinity War. We could have him out, and that's what he was doing the whole time, because we knew how much he cared about his family and, you know, things like that. And just everything just kind of worked, and the setup for Civil War was right there. We saw all of that going on, definitely right there. But I think all of it, again, it could have been planting some seeds, but I think a lot of people grew off that behind the scenes writing and thinking what we could use from this. And a lot of things in WandaVision kind of reflect back to the origins of him or her and Quicksilver, and seeing the bombs and Tony Stark's name and all these different things. So a lot of these things that we got, I think eventually did look back at it as almost a resource to use to blueprint another story. But again, I'm saying there was seeds planted. There was no doubt that Ragnarok was going to happen. Was Hulk going to be in it? I don't know. I don't know if that was their plan, to have Hulk fly off and do their own Planet Hulk and do it some way different, because Universal owns the rights, or they already had plans to have Thor and him together for Ragnarok and do Planet Hulk a little different. We knew Ragnarok was planned out. That's talked about in there, so we pretty sure that was planned out. And of course, the Infinity Stones were all planned out. And when it comes all down to it, I'm not saying Thor is a bad movie, and I'm not suddenly calling Age of Ultron the greatest movie in the world or anything like that. I'm just saying my relationship with both movies just changes, and it doesn't mean what people think about the movie or how I felt, or I was wrong about this and I was right about this. It's just the way we go. And I just always wonder, does that affect people, how they look at you, how you judge a movie? Because if you're like, oh, I'm not going to take your word for it now because you're going to change in the future. But I think over time, when we watch these superhero movies, especially superhero movies, because again, we're in a whole continuity, it's different watching a movie you liked a long time ago and then it had nostalgia for you, and there's nothing else. You go off just that. This is different. This is a whole thing we followed, and being a big comic book person and movie person, it's really deep grained into me. So it's one of those things that we all pull out our favorites and talk about who's this and why this one's better and why this one sucked and all this and that. So I just think given every movie the exact same rating or thoughts within 15 years, sometimes they're going to change. And there's going to be things you think about differently, things you might like more, things you might hate less. But, movies don't change. We basically change. And there are other stories change. And, the franchise changes. A lot of things just are different. Slowly, like I said, Thor has gone down for me as one of the best character arcs, I feel, in the MCU, but that was with all the help of Avengers. But I think Age of Ultron did one of the best setups for him. His part, we saw a lot of different views of him, and I think a lot of it helped because they dropped Jane Foster out of it. And that sucks because he should be able to have relationships and things like that. But I think that kind of slowed down his momentum, going back full circle to why Thor kind of started getting lower for me. But I think what's good is it gives us, it's cool. Within time, we could look at things and we could change our minds. And I think that's cool. And we see things more. you appreciate it more sometimes. You see things more later, and you could be like, yeah, it wasn't as good as I thought. And I think that's okay. And I think it's okay for us to not put that movie high as we want it to anymore, or even in anything when it comes to comics or characters or whatever it is. But we're talking movies here. So I think it's okay at the end of the day to sit there and be like, just like these guys, they're changing really recent movies though, which is weird because I usually think you need a little bit of time. But I also can see while you're in the theater, you feel differently than when you walk out of the theater and when you get home and digest it, or when it comes back out on, I wouldn't say Blu-ray anymore because now it's streaming. When it comes out streaming, we have, time to digest it and look at it differently. So I get it with things being so new, but this is one of the times where I looked at things older, and lately I've just been pushing on everybody, man, Age of Ultron is so good. Age of Ultron is so good. And I just was thinking, like, it's crazy that how much is set up, and then I thought about Thor in it, how he came from Avengers and to what I liked, and Ragnarok I liked. A lot of people are decisive with that, but I liked it a lot. And from where he started, it wasn't the greatest for me now when I look back at it. Again, not a horrible movie, just wasn't my cup of tea now. It wouldn't be up on my huge list of, dude, you gotta watch Thor. It's so good. There's this crazy part that blah, blah, blah. There was no really crazy parts. Probably now the funnest and the exciting thing for me was Hawkeye was shown in the movie. That was really cool. He has an okay fight with some rock people, like Krog people in the beginning. But other than that, there's not much going on. Probably the acting's cool, and people didn't like that his speech, whatever you want to call it, dialect change after the first one. I don't notice it as much. They said it was more Shakespearean in the first one. I don't notice as much, and it's not that much that would bug me. But for the most part, I think it was mainly setting up Loki. Now I look at it long term. They gave Loki the scars of everything that happened to him, and even though it was Thor learning a lesson, I think Loki was the one that was getting the perfect setup. And Age of Ultron is just like I said, it's just Avengers being Avengers. I like the fact that Avengers got to be Avengers, and I think it got slept on for a while, and I think people are finally coming around to saying it's one of the better Marvel movies, and I hope they do. Great villain, done right, great moments, great characters added, just a really good story, good action. The Avengers get to be Avengers, and that's really cool. But that's it. That's all I gotta say. I like Age of Ultron a lot more than I did. I liked it a lot before, but now I'm like really loving it. When it comes on TV, I always stop and watch it. I stop and watch a lot of these movies anyways, even if they're bad. But Thor is one where I'm like, this kind of got worse for me. No, it's not a bad movie, but it's just not as fun as it used to be. But I think that's okay. So I'm just wondering if anyone else has ever gone through that. Have they ever gone through someone being mad that they changed their thoughts on a movie and going, wait, I thought we were bros on this. I thought we were both liking this movie. Or is it a different vibe? Is it like, yeah, I just don't like this movie no more. Like, I used to like it, and then I grew up and got older, or things happened, or other movies came and started pushing it further down. Like, I would like to know what people think, and how, if they ever slowly fell out of love with a movie and just end up liking it instead of loving it, or the other way, you got more infatuated with it. So that is it for me. Thank you for listening. If you stayed the whole time, do the normal stuff, like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you next time.